Hello, everyone. This is Laura Dyer with the Capacity Building Center for Tribes. Thank you all for joining us today. We're right at the start of the hour, so as people are getting signed in, I'm going to first just try and help make sure everyone is fully connected and walk through some technical details about the webinar technology we're using here, which is Adobe Connect Pro, and just talk a little bit about what you're seeing on your screen. So if you're connected to the webinar and are dialed in listening to the meeting audio using your telephone, you may want to mute your computer speakers to avoid the feedback and echo if you're hearing one. So you can do this by either muting your computer speakers directly on your own device, or you can use the functions in the meeting room here by clicking on the speaker icon that you should find on the top left of your screen, and then click Mute My Speakers. We're going to be showing some slides and pictures, so if you're listening into the meeting and you're only connected using your telephone but haven't yet joined the webinar room, doing so will just fully let you be able to see what we're showing and let you be able to fully participate and follow along. I also want to take a moment to just walk through the audio options for those who may be on the web but aren't able to hear us yet. But if you are hearing me and you are seeing the webinar screen, you're good to go, but may run into some issues later on. So you can change how you're connected to the meeting audio at any time during the webinar by following these steps. So if you're listening through your computer speakers already, for example, but find that the connection isn't working well or it starts breaking in and out, you can switch to the telephone audio option. And when you do that, just remember you're going to want to mute your computer speakers so you avoid that echo. So the first step to reconnect or connect your audio is to click on the telephone icon at the top left of your screen, then select Connect My Audio. There are 3 options to choose from. 2 of them require the use of your telephone, and the other third option allows you to listen in through your computer speakers. But just know if you're listening in through your computer speakers, you're not going to be able to verbally communicate with others, but you can share and ask questions throughout the webinar by typing them in the chat box, which I'll get to in just a minute. The first audio option is the dial out, which lets you receive a phone call directly from the webinar room. So all you do is enter your own telephone number in that box there and click join, and your phone will ring. So you simply answer it and follow the instructions on the phone to get connected to the audio. You can also use the traditional dial-in method and select that and use the meeting conference phone number and passcode to join the meeting by calling in yourself. And I'm also keeping that on the screen in the bottom right-hand corner in that webinar reminders section in case you lose your connection at any time, so you can easily dial back in if you need to. And really, this is your webinar, and we want to hear from you throughout. All lines are currently muted just to keep background noise down, but if you're on your telephone, you can press *6 to mute or unmute your line at any time. And you can also use the chat box at any time. You just simply type your comment or question in that white bar at the bottom, and you can either hit enter or select that little talking bubble icon, and that will send us all your message. But please know whatever you type in there will be seen by everyone else on the webinar. You can chat privately with someone, and to do that, you can select in that chat box, there's some lines with a drop-down area in the top corner of the chat box, which is on your right-hand side in the middle. And if you select that, you can start chat with any of the attendees that we have. Just know that if you start a private chat, it's going to show up as a separate tab on your chat window box. So you'll need to click back on the Everyone tab if you want to be able to see what's being shared in the full meeting room. And lastly, we are recording the meeting, and we're going to post the recording on the Tribal Information Exchange, and I have that website available for you there. But please know we'll also send an email out to everyone when that is available. So I'm now super excited to turn things over to Jackie to introduce what we're doing here for the webinar and what we're going to talk about. Thank you, everyone.
A little background on technology. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you now. I unmuted your line.
Wonderful. So I just say thank you, Laura, for helping us understand some of this technology. Some of us have been doing this for years and others are new to all of this. So we're going to do the best we can today and try to navigate through this webinar. I just want to say, okay, welcome everybody. My name is Gakadus Aki. They call me Jackie Croshoe, and I just want to again say hello and welcome, and I am extremely honored to be here with you all. When we had initially talked about doing a webinar like this, it was really done from a place of healing, a place from wanting to start talking about what it's like in our Indigenous communities and know that we all have the answers. And so we really want to take this time to learn and explore with one another. You know, there are really no particular or specific programs or strategies that we're endorsing or any particular path that we're promoting. We recognize that this is, you know, sensitive and it's personal, that we have a dedicated series to this conversation. And it's really wanting to get back from all of you kind of what's happening in your communities, because I think the more we talk about, you know, our healing, our Indigenous healing, you know, it raises our spirits, and it's what we all need to do the work that we're doing out there. So I really look forward to the series, hearing a little bit of feedback. So just to let you all know, we have the one today. We are all connected. We have another one on April 25th coming up called Individual and Family Healing. And then on May 30th, we'll have our third series, which is focusing more on community and organizational healing. So with that, I want to just again say welcome. And I want also to introduce you to our beautiful, amazing panel. You know, one of the reasons I feel so honored is because if any of you know some of the folks here today to share, you are too touched by their wisdom, their kindness, their love, their passion for their community. So I just want to, you know, say, Elsie Boudreau, do you want to give us a welcome?
Elsie was muted, but she should be able to now.
Oh, hi, this is Elsie Boudreau. My Yupik name is Abogen, and I just want to say, Qayana Tailuji, thank you for coming. That is in Yupik.
Beautiful, thank you. And Esther Ann?
Yes. Wolazi Gaudawagan. My name is Esther Ann. I am Beskarmokari, Wabanaki, Passamaquoddy, part of the Wabanaki people up here in Maine. It's a beautiful day. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, Esther. And I also want to welcome Etheline and Rick. Can you give us a welcome and introduce yourselves? And
Betu wasta chichape shina ikik jumi imachapi takes the robe woman. I'm Etheline Ironcloud Two Dogs. Yuha Daya Yahipi. It is good you are all here.
Hiani Washte, I'm Richard Two Dogs. My Lakota spiritual name is Khmuyamani, walks with the roaring. Yuha Daya Yahipi.
Thank you. So when we were planning for this webinar, one of the things that we thought was essential is just looking at a way in which to open this up for you all. And so Rick is going to go ahead, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Rick, and you can open us all up with your prayer.
Thank you. I'll pray in my Lakota language. Wampeto kilea mitaki obheche ohina zipin onea toke chawayak obin kawopila okenicha. Nkhaheche chiampeto kilea taku wonspe onkicho na taku akionya pikti onkhaheno onkichi washte po o heche wota ki tona anagup na kapi lena heche tiwai ni kapi ob heche we chose on your wangla ke el mayani no tokata heche o washte onji lo hakta heche hoyichiche o heche muka on cha tako toka lena tako washte tako heche tu shena hoyu yankalo o mitake asi. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Kathleen?
Thank you so much. Mahasani, my other half, that was a very beautiful prayer, set the tone for what we'd like to talk about. And I just want to reiterate what Jackie shared about, that this is a sensitive subject and that we are not promoting any particular way, that we'd like to highlight healing in whatever forms, whatever models, whatever ways that people have. I think we would all agree on this webinar that there's so many things happening out there that require healing and that require a healing-informed approach. So I really appreciate all the presenters, my relatives on this webinar. I appreciate Laura for being so patient with us regarding the tech part and for her organizational and tech skills. And thank you, Jackie, for moderating. We wanted to talk about the Lakowi Choka Uwakipha Etan Kawachi Api Ichapi, which in our Lakota language is healing of the mind and spirit using the Lakota culture. I would like to say that there are a lot of ways to heal our mind, our spirit, our bodies, our families, and our communities. And what we're presenting is an example from what we know and what we've experienced. So by no means are we saying that this is the only way that you heal. So we wanted to share that as a way of highlighting how indigenous peoples, indigenous nations across the country, across the world have healing opportunities, have healing ways that people can connect with. And so that's our intent today. So I'll turn it over to Mahasani.
Good morning, everybody, again. I want to speak about our Lakota worldview. So we believe we come from Nariata, the spirit world, and we pass through 4 stages in our life. So as soon as we know of the conception, then we have acknowledging the baby, the child within the womb. We say that they are aware of everything. So first we sing to the unborn baby, and the mother is not exposed to anything negative, and the family and extended family looks out for mother and unborn baby so that the child is not traumatized inside the womb. So at birth, we have the ceremony called I-Oichai Juntapi, the cleaning of the mouth by the grandmother. Then the grandmother makes a prayer and predicts a path for the child to go through life. So this is an important ceremony because we also believe that the grandmother passes on what they call the Oha, or her ways. So the elder is somebody that's industrious and has good standing in the family, so the path is sent in that direction of the baby. And then around the age of 12 or so, not exact, but it depends on each individual, we have the rites of passage. So for the women, it's the Ishnati Awichalawampi. They sing for her that dwells alone, and usually she spends 4 days at the first sign of her menstrual cycle, or her first cleansing. She dwells alone in a teepee, and for 4 days she's given teachings by elder women how to live her life as a good Lakota woman that will contribute to society. Then for the young men, we have the Wichasha Ihonipi, the reaching manhood, the rite of passage, where usually they would, in olden days, they would go out and kill a buffalo and then bring it back to an elderly family or a widow that had nobody to hunt for them. So, and then they would sing a song of praise for them, and then they would have, they would take their place in society as a warrior and as a person that contributes to society in a positive way. And then we have a third stage, which is the young man and young woman establish their family. They have a marriage bundle, and they make a sacred vow to raise their children in a good way and be and the Tiwaihe and the Tioshpai, which is the family and the extended family that accepts responsibility for their child also. So we have a saying that it takes a whole village to raise a child, and that's true. So in the old days, we had a saying that there was no orphans long ago. And then they move in the fourth quadrant into the elder role, which provides teachings for the younger generations, and they ensure a social and custom and spiritual order. So they would move throughout the community, giving advice and teaching of them of the stories and the creation stories and how it patterned our life long ago. So this still exists among our people. So this was a pattern of the stages of life in our society long ago. And this is the Lakota worldview that I'm speaking about. But I think a lot of other indigenous peoples had something that was similar. So next we move on to the interrupted journey in the next slide. So unfortunately today we still come from the spirit world, but there's a lot of interruptions in the first quadrant. There's a lot of child abandonment, there's sexual abuse, and there's a lot of trauma at an early age. So a lot of these teachings are not given, and these things are not passed to the child while it's still in the womb to the first stage of life. So this has led to a lot of suicide attempts among our young people, because by the time they reach the age of 12 and a little beyond, they realize that these traumas are affecting their life, and trauma affects their life in the sense that they don't have a will to live. So we have 3 times the national average on suicides among our people. And then they move on to the third quadrant, which is a lot of our people are living on streets. They're addicted to alcohol and drugs, and there's a high percentage of our people are in all of the prisons throughout the United States. And then as they move into the elder age, we have a lot of early deaths among our people. For the males, it's 45 to 50. For the females, it's early 50s due to what we're experiencing in our communities because of the disconnection from our culture and our way of life. So now there's few elders to pass on the teachings or keep the social custom and the spiritual order alive. So the great holy man Blackout had a vision. He said that we're going to go through 4 ascents in our life as a people. We're going to go through 4 stages, generations, and we're going to if we return to our spiritual ways, he said, we will survive as a people. So that was a part of his vision. So thank you for listening, and I'll be here to answer any questions. Thank you.
I think what's really evident here, Laura, if you could go back to the Lakota Way of Life slide, if you see how healing that whole process is of the kinship system down at the bottom of the slide, you see how the kinship system was very strong. And we believe in Lakota society that that is the glue that holds us together. So whenever a young woman was pregnant, then the female relatives would come together, and likewise the male relatives would counsel and mentor the young man who was going to be a father. So just think how healing that is and how it promotes healing to have our individual, I guess, tribal, indigenous lifeways form the foundation. It's there already. It's a healing foundation. So if you could go to back to the next slide. So in the interrupted journey, then because those the healing foundation, the healing ways were not evident, are not evident as in this example, then there's more vulnerability. So if the young woman and the young man do not get counsel and if they're not mentored on how to care for the child and to treat the child as a sacred being, then there's more opportunity for abuse. There's more opportunity for that child needing healing in later life from the interruptions in the life journey. So we wanted to make that point, about how our indigenous healing lifeways are all there. It's up to us to reconnect to them. And otherwise, we'll be confronted with this interrupted journey, this graphic or this example of the interrupted journey. Part of the healing process is to have a cultural toolkit, and this is, for us, this is one of our items in our cultural toolkit. We refer back to this constantly and consistently about what we're supposed to provide for our children and our grandchildren. Last week, we completed a 4-day womanhood ceremony for 2 granddaughters. And what we want for them is the best in life. We want them to be happy and healthy and to realize their goals and their full potential. So that's up to us, as elders and as adults, to put those opportunities in place. And part of it is they would have a toolkit. It's called a wokpa in our Lakota language, where the wokpa is every individual carried one in case of an emergency or just to be prepared. If there was a sudden traumatic event like violence or accident or a death, and the individual would use the wokpa for calming purposes, to make offerings, and for soothing the spirit during traumatic times. So I would say that if we equipped our children and our young people with a wokpa Lakota cultural toolkit that they could rely on in stressful times, then we might see less responses like suicide attempts, like suicide completions. So we'll leave you with that thought. And again, this is from the Lakota worldview. So I'll turn it over to Jackie now.
Thank you, Ephleen. Thank you, Rick. I also, just want folks to know that when we have, for those of you that know Ephleen and Rick, you know that with them come just many teachings. And one of the things that we really wanted to do with the Capacity Building Center for Tribes is, how do we capture this in a very authentic, respectful way? So hopefully soon, in the near future, we will be delivering a product that talks about this Lakota worldview that they just described for us. Many of us who have had the opportunity to hear about this worldview and have, it really has resonated. And for all of you out there in Indian country, I think, once we begin to understand and practice and learn more about, our own teachings, there is where we have those answers. There is where our healing begins. So again, I just, with all due respect, say, thank you, Ephleen and Rick. But I also want to ask folks, and however you feel comfortable, what do you carry in your toolkit? And I know there can be several different names that we give this. I know, the Moto Geeks, the Buffalo Women's Society, there's the medicine bundles. There are different ways that we describe this. But so do some of you want to share, any particular toolkit that you have or that your community uses or you use personally that you would like to share with others, perhaps in the chat room, or unmute your mics? And I'm just going to pause for a second. Looks like we might have some shy natives out there.
Hello, can you hear me? This is Esther.
Yes, yes.
Hi, I rely on Sage a lot. I find that it's for me it's the quickest, helps me calm down or helps me get clear thinking pretty quickly. If I'm feeling upset or sad, it brings me to a good place where I can think better.
Mm-hmm. And I know others have put in the chat room that they too have had the shells and they carry the sage, they carry the cedar and the tobacco. And you know, and we can continue to share in the chat room for others who have a particular toolkit that they use or that they carry, either for themselves or for the families they work with. And I think the hardest part about this technology is I really want to do respect those who are typing or have answers. It's hard because, you know, it's somewhat impersonal, but just know I'm doing the best I can to recognize your voice in this webinar. You know, and I also want to recognize, you know, again, like we stated at the very beginning of this, some of this is very sacred to us, therefore very private. So again, you know, we will continue to reiterate that too. And I very much respect that. And now I guess what I want to do too is just ask if any of you have any questions for Etheline and Rick, particularly around what they shared with the Lakota, both the Lakota worldview, the uninterrupted as well as the interrupted. If there were questions that, you know, you would like to ask of them while you have them, or information you want to share with them.
Jackie, this is Elsie. I'm wondering if Etheline would talk about the role of the elder and what it means to become an elder.
I think I was on mute. Thank you, Elsie, for that. If you go back to, Laura, if you go back to the slide about the Lakota way of life, that one, if you look in that fourth quadrant, the stage of where we are preparing to go back to the spirit world, where we have a role, the elders have a role of providing teachings, ensuring social order, observing custom law, ensuring spiritual order. I think that stems from, in our Lakota worldview, we have a term for elder man, which is Wichakchala. And many of you, if not all of you, know that indigenous language is very difficult to translate into English. And in Lakota, the Wichakchala, the we is from the sun, and the males are associated with the sun in the sky. And the Cha is from solid and strong. La is from like a term of affection, term of endearment, and precious, something that you hold precious. So Wichakchala doesn't mean elder man, it means my dear male source of strength. Likewise, the Winuchala, the elder woman, the concept is from is from Hahewi, which is the moon. The females are associated with the moon. Ksha, solid and strong, someone to rely on. La is again term of endearment, affection, precious, something you hold dear. So in actuality, Winuchala is actually my dear female source of strength, and that's much different from old woman or elder woman. So that's something that we strive for, and all the things that you see and much more in these 4 quadrants. There's many more ceremonies that take place in order for a man to become a Wichakchala, a dear and precious male source of strength, and for a woman to become Minukchala, a dear and precious female source of strength. So hopefully that explains it. Elsie, is that what you wanted me to share?
Yes, thank you so much. And I think that ties in beautifully with what it means to be a human being, really, and that we all strive to get to that place in our life, that we are a precious source of strength for all our relatives.
Any other questions out there? Comments?
Hi, this is Esther. I just wanted to know, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Okay. I just was thinking about how in, my experience in trying to reclaim some of these traditions and these tools that can help us that are from, our own tribes and other tribes. I've seen, I used to work a lot with young people, and I've seen how difficult it can be to navigate all of the different rules or protocol that sometimes we get, and sometimes young people in particular get mixed messages, and it makes them, I've seen it make them reluctant to try to smudge or anything on their own, because they're told you have to do it this way or that way. And I just wanted to know if you could comment on that a little bit, Efleen.
Sorry. I think that, that's a real critical question, because, a lot of our young people want to engage in these healing ways, and they do get, mixed messages about it, that, oh, they're too young to do that. They don't know anything about it. There's, a lot of lateral oppression, I think, that goes on amongst our people whenever we do want to, engage in our healing ways. And I would like to also address Sue Lofton, the relative there, saying, what if there's no village? And that's something I think that, and I appreciate Raquel's comment about build one, build a village. And I think that's our responsibility as far as relatives. If a child, a person does not have relatives to put these healing ways in place for them, then we as programs or community members, we have that responsibility to do that. So in essence, we become the relatives. And if we did not look at individuals as students, as clients, as numbers, and we looked at them and treated them as relatives, then the dynamics would be much more healing. So hopefully, Esther, that answered your question, but I also wanted to tack on that comment.
Yes, thank you. Willie one?
Any other comments or questions?
Jackie?
And if something comes up, again, please use your chat room, or don't hesitate to unmute. I think part of having this conversation is just also recognizing kind of within ourselves, there's no wrong or right question. I feel like sometimes we build these, hierarchies, or we put certain folks, in certain ways that, and we end up becoming intimidated, and therefore we ourselves, and I'm guilty of this, can shut down some teachings because of our fears, right? So please, if anybody has questions, feel free to use the chat room or to ask. And if not, without, it's hard to kind of pause and not pause too long here with technology, but I want to introduce Elsie. And Elsie, if you couldn't unmute and talk a little bit about where you're from.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Waka yupiuga abuga nauga. My Yupik name is Aburen. I'm named after my maternal grandmother. And I always say when I introduce myself, I feel her spirit. And I feel that connection, even though I have never met her. And I'm really honored to be part of this process. And I think I look to Etheline as my female source of strength, my dear female source of strength. And Rick and I just so appreciate the energy that you bring, knowing that, we have all been through a lot of different traumas, relational traumas, different things in our lives, yet we are still here and we still have the voice of hope and strength. And I'm grateful that the world has people like you, and I just am so appreciative. So I am Yupik Eskimo, originally from St. Mary's, Alaska, and I currently live in Anchorage, and I'm the youngest daughter of 7, the late Edgar and Teresa Francis of St. Mary's, and the granddaughter of the late George and Aburen Peterson of Old Andreevsky, and the granddaughter of the late Alfred and Nastasia Francis of Pilot Station. I'm a mom, and I'm married, and I have 3 children and 2 beautiful grandchildren. And what I'm going to speak to today, I think, is universal. Because we are all human beings, we all have a need to connect and to be loved and to matter. And I want to speak to the fact that as a Yupik person, we have teachings as to what it means to be a real human being. And what that means is to be kind and compassionate, to be loving, and to be cognizant of the world around you in which you live. That idea of being interconnected with the land, the animals, the universe, each other, and ourselves. And I think it's really important to know that connection with ourselves is just as important as the connection that we have with other people. And I firmly believe that it is our sense of spirituality, that sense of connection, that is going to bring healing. That's the only thing that can bring healing. And that sense of spirituality is different for everybody. It's almost like it's personal and universal. And when I talk about spirituality, I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about the connection to yourself and to the world around you. It is that sense that everything is sacred. And so when we talk about, as a Yupik person, we talk about Kanho Yutit, the words to live by. The Kanho Yutit, they were taught to everybody. But they were treated almost like it was like medicine to the body and to the spirit. It was a moral code kind of directing and guiding people as to how to have interpersonal relationships. And so that brings me to the idea that healing, when we talk about healing, no one can heal alone. It is in that connection, and that's why it's really important when we talk about we are all connected. It is laying that foundation. And I mean, when you look up the word healing in the dictionary, it is defined as to make free from injury or disease, to make sound or whole. And so what we're talking about when we talk about healing is that we're coming home to ourselves, to our being. And as our respected elder, Dr. Rita Blumenstein, talks about how when you heal the universe and you heal our ancestors. And so she also talks about how to be yourself is a gift to the world. So I want to reiterate the fact that no one heals alone, and that this healing that we're talking about belongs to you. You have a right to your healing. And as the Yupik people, the Kankoyuta, talk about, while the healing belongs to you, you have a responsibility. Like, you can be connected and have the support and the connection of other people, but it is your responsibility to heal. And it's your gift, it's your right. You have that right to heal. And so much of it is giving oneself permission in a loving, gentle way, knowing that the healing takes time, it's a process, and it can hurt. It doesn't always feel good. But know that we all come from somewhere, and we have these Kankoyutit, the words to live by. And what I know as a Yupik person is that the power of the Kankoyutit were taught in a kind and compassionate way. And so it's really important when we talk about healing that we acknowledge that there is grief attached to that, and to give ourselves space in that grief. And in that grief, to be gentle and to be honest and to be connected with yourself, and to know that that response to trauma or whatever injury, that response is a normal response to trauma. It doesn't mean anyone is going crazy. It just means that it's a normal response. And so when we talk about healing, we always want to bring it back to the fact that healing is possible. And if you get anything from my little piece here, that's what I want you to hear, is that healing is possible. And that even our Yupik elders, they would talk about, and I refer a lot of times to the book, Wise Words of the Yupik People. We talk to you because we love you. And to me, that's almost like my quote-unquote Bible. Because as a Yupik person growing up in this day and age, it's almost like I was so hungry for those words to live by. And I'm grateful for the elders that had that foresight to be able to talk to people, to an anthropologist, and to put it into a book. Because then it's a gift. And in that way, I can connect further to Abogen, to my maternal grandmother, and to my ancestors. And we, like I always say, that we all come from somewhere, and we all have a story. And every story is important. And that the most important thing is, and as our Yupik elders have talked about, they say that our minds are powerful and our minds are also vulnerable, and that a person's mental power is so great that it can easily overwhelm them. And the importance of being able to speak about that injury or the trauma, and how if one doesn't do that, then they become sick or they become confused. And I just want to read quickly this quote, and it's by an elder, Teresa Moses. She says, "One who keeps secrets will heal only if he speaks of them. If he keeps misdeeds inside, some part of his mind changes. They call those people uzvichid, ones with confused minds, lacking the capacity to think clearly or to know right from wrong." Even though it is not something serious to start with, if he decides not to speak of it to anyone, his disposition will deteriorate. But if he speaks of it right away, it will go away. They can tell anyone about what is troubling them, speaking to those they find easy to confide in. And so they recommend even talking to animals to be able to put those words out there. And it brings me to think about healing and how healing has its own energy. And they talk about how healing is very, the trauma or the injury, if you speak to it, it becomes afraid and it leaves your body, is how they put that it has its own energy. And if you acknowledge it and speak of it, then it becomes afraid and it leaves your body. So, so in that way, when we talk about how we are all connected, it's important to remember that connection to yourself as well, and how being loving and kind and gentle with yourself, knowing that it's a process. And we have, as Indigenous people, have many teachings, and the Lakota worldview is a beautiful example of what it means to be a human being. And so what we would like to do is kind of talk about, when you think about healing, what does that look like to you? And we will be putting together a poster with different images of what that healing looks like to you. And so at this point, I'm just wanting to open it up for discussion. What does healing look like to you?
Elsie, this is Etheline. While people are typing in, I see a lot of them are typing in. Somebody said contentment, but I think about my granddaughters that went through the Ishnati Awichalompi, the ceremony to move them from girlhood to young womanhood, and how bright and beautiful they looked. And at the end of the ceremony, and the focus was on them, and they were appreciated as individuals. They were valued, and they felt that. And I think that because both of them have been through some challenges in life, then I think that's what it looks like to me, is a bright, beautiful, smiling face. Thank you.
Thank you, Evelyn, for that. That is beautiful. I have that image. I can see just that contentment and that shine, right? And how important that is. And just as the healing is individual, whatever healing you've done, no one can take that away from you, right? It's a gift to yourself and a gift to the world. And different people have been putting, healing looks like being in a safe surrounding. It looks like balance in a person moving forward, but not forgetting where they are from, contentment, happy faces of our children and grandchildren. Healing is not being afraid to be by yourself, comfortable with yourself, as if you were with a loving, accepting friend or family member. Thank you, Martha, for that. Healing to me is sometimes a new beginning, being able to start fresh. After being afraid of being alone for most of my life, learning how to be by myself and peaceful. Healing does not mean the absence of pain or challenges, but it means you have something inside you to face the pain and challenges. And having built a support system with mutual understanding and assistance. Yes, thank you, Jill. I so appreciate people typing in because that's so important. Because in that way we are all connected. Even this process can be healing, right? So just imagine right now we have over 100 people on the webinar and all the speakers. If you imagine that we are all connected, if you imagine the earth, and there's an energy, and each one of us is thinking about healing and thinking about love and connection and being gentle and kind, and how that energy itself can carry us through. And in that way, you are not alone. You are not alone ever. Healing is my internal light burning bright and feeling peaceful in a world of chaos. So much in the dominant culture is punitive. Here we are talking about restoring what has been hurt rather than adding more pain. Healing is a connection to culture and spirituality when you weren't brought up with it. Healing is learning about oneself, connecting to oneself. Beautiful. So I would encourage you to continue typing in. And at this point, I'm going to turn it back over to Jackie. Thank you all, Koyana, so much.
Thank you, Elsie. That was beautiful. And I also appreciate, you know, everyone who is sharing in this chat room and reading all the different ways I think that we're connected in the way that we take care of ourselves and the way that we're growing and the way that we're learning. I appreciate that. You know, one of the things that, you know, when you were talking, you know, Elsie and as well as Etheline and Rick and being connected, I remember waking up one morning of my many trips out to Standing Rock and laying in my bed thinking and hearing all of the different, you could hear, you know, out far a flute, you could hear, you know, drums, and you could tell that they were drums from various tribes around the country. You could hear the rattles. And, you know, I just laid there thinking, and then in the evenings you could hear these young men and their war cries, and, you know, and I would just lay there with tears of joy of pride, and to see how we as Indigenous people from all over, hundreds of tribes, coming together and praying together, singing together, dancing together, you know, and just it being pure love, and, you know, all there to, you know, protect our ways, protect our rights, protect the water, of course, in that situation. But, you know, it just reminded me of, you know, how much it filled me up to a point where I would keep going back, because every time I left, you know, I'd have to call my spirit with me, because it wanted to stay there, because it felt safe. It felt, you know, connected. And I just thought, you know, I can't not share some of that experience. And I'm sure many of you who, you know, are out there with us, you know, perhaps were there as well and had some of the same experiences. So again, you know, I just thank you, Etheline and Rick and Elsie. And the other thing too that I just wanted to read for you guys is this beautiful poem. And I know some of you have asked about whether the slides are going to be available, or as Laura indicated, this is being recorded, and so we'll be sure to have that recording for you all and get you the link to it. I know she posted it in the chat room as well, but also the slides. You know, we'll make sure and get this information to you. So for those of you that have staff you want to share it with, or coworkers, we want to make sure that we just keep spreading this. But one of the poems that I thought was beautiful was this one here in front of you. A strange passion is moving in my head. My heart has become a bird which searches in the sky. Every part of me goes in different directions. Is it really so that the one I love is everywhere? I know when we've talked about planning this, we talked about, you know, really it being about love, right? Healing is really about love, loving ourselves. So I thought that was a perfect poem to throw in there for you all to take. So let's keep listening. I want to keep hearing from some of you out there, you know, just some of the ways in which you can stay connected to your culture. You know, I know that we have so many different tribes, folks coming from different areas, but let's keep sharing kind of what we do to stay connected to our culture. I want to keep spreading this love, the healing, right? I think we all need this. So I'm just going to pause for a moment again and just see what some of you do to stay connected to your culture. Yeah, I'm reading actually about the language. I think those of us who may not have been had it in our homes growing up, we are taking it back. We are going in and we are learning our language. And we all know that in our language comes so much teaching. Sitting with elders, I love that. Ceremonies, having that connection, of course, to our medicines. We talked about that toolkit and some of the things that folks carry with them to stay connected. And again, you know, I really appreciate somebody had commented about the privacy, and I just, again, want to reiterate that, you know, there are some things that I think that we just keep within us, you know, that we don't always share. And so I really want to respect that teaching. And so, and just acknowledge that even though we may not be sharing it, doesn't mean we don't carry it, right? Again, we have language, we have gatherings, more visiting with elders, listening to their stories, and of course, you know, communities' annual harvesting, yes, beautiful. And then sharing the stories from our teachers and from our elders, listening to storytellers and fire keepers. Oh, yeah. And another comment is just being around the people more, right? I think sometimes, you know, there are
many ways that I'm living right now in Minnesota. My tribe is in North Dakota. But what's beautiful is we have such a large urban Indian population in Minneapolis. And, you know, there are probably gatherings every weekend, you know, whether they are, you know, sweat ceremonies, whether they're powwows, whether they're, you know, storytelling, but just being around our people. I completely agree. Lots of listening to our elders on here. I like that. And there are still people typing, and I just want to, you know, respect that. And again, just adjusting myself to technology. I in no way want to disrespect folks out there who may not be able to type as fast, or, you know, not feeling comfortable unmuting. So just bear with me, and do know that I you know, want to share that respect. So one of the chat room rows, Margaret has, and as an old person, making sure I talk to the young ones and mentoring those who want to learn more. I appreciate that, because I get to often do some work with Margaret, and just sitting next to her sometimes gives me the strength and allows me to feel safe and guarded and comfortable. So I appreciate your comments, Margaret. Judith talks about just observing others and peace, the peace you get from that. Ah, I love this. Thank you. So as others are typing, and I'll be sure our others can help me, either, you know, Athleen or Elsie or Esther, if there are other folks that are in the chat. One thing I'm not the greatest at, although sometimes I think I am, but I'm not, is multitasking. So I'm trying to look at chat rooms, and I'm trying to look at the slides, so just bear with me here. But here's another question that we want to pose to you all. How does your identity play into your healing? I know that, you know, when I had received my Indian name, which is Gakadusaki, you know, with it came, of course, a song and a story. And when I received that name, I felt that I became my name, Star Woman. I felt that I began to hold myself up in a way that gave me that strength, in a way that helped me to walk and to feel. So when I'm in those ceremonies and my elders call me by my name, you know, it's like your spirit just perks up, right? And I can't even describe to you that feeling that came over me when I got that name. So others in here are talking about their ancestors who came through the Trail of Tears and arriving. It lets me know that I'm from a strong family. Absolutely. Our history. So, and for those that might be on the phone but not seeing the slides, the question on this particular slide is, how does your identity play into your healing? Yes, this is, so a comment here is, it's important for me to know where I come from and what my people overcame in the past, to focus on the resiliency and be sure to not let it hold me back from all the possibilities. Isn't that right? Absolutely. Another comment is identifying as a two-spirit male. In my language, I am called a Winkta. I embrace who I am. I learn and ask questions about my role before colonization. To Today, I try to help my people by bringing light to the issues that impact my population. I heal through helping others. That's beautiful, Lenny. And for those of you that have been able to hear Lenny and some of his presentations, I just want to thank you for joining us today, Lenny, and sharing, who you are and what you bring to the table. And again, as people are typing, we also want folks to think about what was the last thing you did where you felt connected and engaged with others. Which is the next slide. What was the last thing you did where you felt connected and engaged with others? Here's a beautiful comment. Margaret talks about, to know the sacrifices of my ancestors made, what they made, so that I could be here today to bear witness to our resiliency and the beautiful people who we are today. What was the last thing you did where you felt connected and engaged with others? Another comment was, they sat and listened to a youth who was going through something, helping serve our elders at our nutrition site. Beautiful. Emily Ironcloud, my healing began when I learned about my role as a Lakota woman, and being a mother was the most important aspect of my being. Someone's talking about the work they do with the youth in the treatment center and just listening to them and listening to our youth. It's beautiful. I love this. I will say that it is emotional, because for me, when we talk about all of these strengths that we have as Indigenous people and all that we're doing out there, all of the work that you guys are doing out there, and then to be able to read some of, what you are doing and the connections that you have, being able to help my community members get things sorted out during hard times. I know many of us have had to, bury our relatives too soon, our community members. So not only are we attending to our work, but we're also there for our community members in the funerals that we are attending to. I feel most connected when helping others with no expectation or anything in return. Talking with other Indian women, isn't that the truth? I belong to the Ikoi Strong. It's an Indigenous women's group where we do all kinds of activities, one of which is the triathlon in the summer. So instead of swimming, though, we get to canoe. So it's just Indigenous women, and what we do is we've been bringing our mothers and our babies, our grandbabies, and it's just been going on now for 7 years. It keeps getting stronger. So I completely agree with that comment. And I just want to also be cognizant of the other folks, presenters, Etheline and Rick and Esther and Elsie. If there's anything that you want to add or comment, please help me, May. I thank you all for this feedback. So I'm going to actually turn this over to Esther. Esther, if you could perhaps unmute and talk a little bit about your Passamaquoddy culture?
Hello. Wolosi Gaudawagan. It's wonderful to greet you all today. In Talewi's Esther Ann, Eskrimokari Nil, Shwabanaki, Nujeo Zibayik, Wigu Bonawabskewi. My name is Esther Ann. I am Passamaquoddy, the people who spear pollock, and I am part of the Wabanaki, the people of the land where the sun first looks our way. My family is from Zibayig, which is on the water, and I live in Penobscot territory, the place of the White Rocks. As I was thinking about this webinar and this We Are All Connected, I can't help but reflect on a personal experience that I had where I found myself in a prison with Native inmates in a circle. I never expected to be there. We had received some funding to go into the prison to collect the stories of inmates who were involved in child welfare services. And I thought, you know, we'll hire somebody to do that. And as it turns out, I found myself there. So I'm in this place that is very disconnected from the rest of society, the rest of the world. And we're actually taught to reinforce those disconnections to our people who are caught up in the criminal justice system. And I had a lot of fears. I was afraid. You know, they give you you got to go through training, and they give you a emergency button that you can hit if there's trouble. But it was in that circle that day with the bundle in the middle of the circle, and that I felt most connected to my ancestors and to my identity as a Eskrimokari person. I felt so much compassion in that circle with those men, and I felt so connected to them as well. It didn't matter before, you know, what my mind was telling me on the way there was trying to sort out, geez, I wonder what they did, you know, and in that circle, in that space, it didn't matter. It didn't matter what they did. What really mattered is that they were there, and they were bringing their whole selves there and their hearts there. Consequently, we continued our work, and we, up here in Maine, we are doing circles with all of the Native men and women inmates in 6 facilities in Maine. And our circles are all based on connection to the spirit. We try our best to get them connected to the actual earth, but it's very difficult to get outside. We manage to do that maybe once or twice a year. My brother is a pipe carrier, and he has been doing sweats in the prisons for a long time, and we help facilitate that so that he has good access to the inmates. And I have seen, you know, the harm that the disconnection causes, not only to these people who are incarcerated, but to their families and their children. And we know that Native people have the highest disproportionate rate of incarceration, but it doesn't often make the news or any of the debates when criminal justice reform is talked about because of the invisibility that we have. So we have been focusing our work on, Elsie talked about restoring and repairing harm, and we've been focusing our work on offering, educating about restorative justice processes and offering those to inmates and families as they are released and come back into the community. And it also means educating the community about these processes. And the other thing I was reflecting on is how child welfare is disconnected in our tribal communities, the task or the responsibility of protecting children, I probably could safely say that was in the center of all of our cultures and our societies and our communities, and it has been relegated to a department of, a handful of people, and it causes them to be disconnected as well. So one thing that I work with a tribal state Indian Child Welfare Act work group, and we have been trying to bring that balance back into the community and find ways to offer community people roles within the child welfare system to support children and families who are separated and disconnected because of child welfare. We've identified, besides foster parents and qualified expert witnesses, we've identified the need for people to even be community hosts. A lot of our children that are separated from the community, sometimes with non-Native families, find it particularly difficult to reconnect. And so we are wanting folks in the community to act as hosts so that when they come back for gatherings or events, they have somebody with them to show them around and make them feel comfortable. So those are just a couple of the things that I have been reflecting on, and in the time that I've been working with these wonderful folks. I just joined real late last week. So if anybody had any questions they wanted to ask me about any of those, my experiences or the work that we have been doing, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you again, Esther. And if folks do have some comments, we can be sure to get those questions to you or read them aloud. But one of the things I'm just looking at the time and recognizing how fast this is going. One of the things I want to make sure and talk about is, and I think, Elsie, you mentioned it earlier in today's webinar, is that we have this quilt, and I think some of you who came on early were able to see an image that we had on the slide for you all. There it is. Thank you, Laura. And if you can, if you look at those images, those of course are some of what we have shared today. But what we really would love, this is our idea, is to capture not only what some of you have shared in the chat room, but also any images that you want to be a part of this healing quilt that we are going to create. And really it's just about restoring balance and wellness through our Indigenous ways of healing. That's what we want. So we want you to send us your images, and so we can include that and build upon this quilt, right? I am so excited when we first started talking about this, what it could potentially look like, and then to actually have this image that was created with the help of Laura and Angie Bordeaux, and just can you imagine what this would look like when we start adding more and more images to it? And then the idea is having it made into a poster for folks, so you guys can hang it, either in your homes or in your offices. So what I'm excited too. Somebody else said they love the idea. Yay! But what I want to be able to do is make sure that you all have the link to where you can send this, or I think it's actually, we can send it to Laura, and we'll be sure to get you Laura has it. I tell you, I think these things up and Laura has already taken care of it. She is the gal. So you can send your images to laura.dyer@maine.edu. And we're going to collect these images. We'll also be looking to get releases just to make sure. And I know, Lenny, you had talked about some images that were shared on a post that I put out on Facebook. And again, similarly to the response we had with this particular series, is the response that we got, or that I got, with folks sharing their images and their stories of healing. And I just sat there and was reading them and crying. And then, of course, when we had a staff meeting, I had to read them back to my coworkers, and they're in tears, because this is how we heal. This is what we get to do. We get to share our healing stories. And again, as some of you indicated, some of it's crying and it's painful, but it's healing, right? And so what we want you guys to do is send your images to Laura so we can begin building upon this quilt. And I will include, of course, Lenny, the images that we have, that I gathered from folks out there in the Indian community. And looking like some of you love the quilt idea. So we're just, somebody asked what kind of images, and Laura, if you want to turn back to that quilt image, as you can see in that particular quilt there, I mean, healing can look like anything, right, Raquel? Like, so sometimes it's just children. Sometimes it's, as you're seeing, gatherings. There's one there of a powwow. There's one there of some folks canoeing, running, sitting. There's a young man listening to an elder. There's a dad with a baby on a drum. So these images can be whatever you want them to be, whatever you feel restores your balance and your wellness through your indigenous ways. And so I'm so excited to be able to have this quilt when we are done with this 3-part series. So yes, send your images to Laura, and we will be sure to gather them. I know that we'll likely be needing, releases just to make sure that there's permission. We'd hate to create this poster and then find out an image on there that we didn't have permission. That wouldn't be good. Raquel talked about, I really like the smiling grandma with the green bandana. Oh, that's Elsie. I think that's Elsie's image. Elsie, is that your relative?
Yes, she is from Marshall, Alaska. Yes, she's a beautiful, we call her Mrs. Ben, and she's my relative.
Lovely. Yes, that image. Elsie and I have the honor of presenting at NICWA this year, and of course, I've included that image in our work because it just brings me so much warmth and joy, as well as the elder with the baby, who is Rosie Dayrider from the Blood Reserve in Canada. So yeah, I mean, what we want to do, some folks are asking about the quilt. So what we want to do at the very end is be sure to create a poster. I'm not sure, there's a question about whether we can use the template to create their own poster, and all that I'm going to have to defer probably to Laura, who could email you back, Sabrina. I know that there is some permission with these images. Right now, the images you are all seeing are images we as presenters have shared. But once we get images from you all, we'll need some permission, and then however that's worded, I'm not even going to pretend to figure that out, but we can get back to you on that question, Sabrina. So, looking at the time, it's 2:24. I just want to turn it back over. Those of you, I first want to say thank you all for joining us. And again, make sure you mark your calendars. I think we have the next one that I had mentioned on April 25th, which is going to be on individual and family healing. And then again on May 30th, so mark your calendars for the upcoming series on this. And then also there will be a survey coming out to you just to get some feedback
and just see if we're meeting your needs. But I also want to leave you all. Esther's going to do just some guided imagery for us. And for those of you that can hang on and listen to this guided meditation and this closing, feel free to hang on. Those of you that need to get off and tend to other things, please do so. So Esther, I'm going to turn it over to you. And I just, again, want to thank everybody. And I want to thank Etheline and Rick and Elsie and Laura and all of the work that folks did to put into this time together. So thank you all.
Molly One Jackie. Okay, I invite you to sit comfortably in your chair, your back nice and straight, your hands placed comfortably in your lap, either palms up or palms down, whatever feels comfortable for you. Your feet planted squarely on the floor. Be relaxed with an upright posture. Take a deep breath in, hold it, and slowly let it out. Now I invite you to close your eyes or to simply lower and soften your gaze. First of all, just become aware of the environment. Become aware of what's around you. Be aware of the light coming through your eyelids, the sounds, the smells, the sense of space, the air touching your skin. Be aware and just acknowledge where you are. You are here now. Simply accept the presence of everything around you. Now let's turn our awareness inward to our bodies. Become aware of the back of your thighs resting comfortably on the seat of your chair. Feel the chair against your muscles and know you are supported. Pay some loving attention to your spine. Your backbone is flexible and responsive. Notice how it moves with every breath. Imagine a thread of light extending from the top of your spine through the top of your head and up into the cosmos, disappearing into the stars. Remember, you are connected to all that is, and you are supported. Be aware of your breath in your belly. Relax in your belly muscles and become aware of the gentle rise and fall of your belly. Take one big cleansing breath in and release it with a sigh, letting go of any tensions in your body. They are free to leave. Inhale again slowly through your nose, expanding your belly, and breathe into your heart center. Breathe in knowing you are at peace, and breathe out with a smile because right here, right now, you are happy. Notice how your mind becomes calmer. Your mind quiets with each breath. Next, become aware of your feet. Bring your thoughts into your feet. Notice your feet and fill them with awareness. Become aware of different sensations that are present in your feet and just relax. Choosing to let go. You are supported by the floor beneath your feet. Now bring your attention to that floor. Imagine how it stretches out around you to touch the walls of the building and how those walls extend downward into the ground, the firm foundation resting deeply in the rich soils of Mother Earth. Imagine the earth underneath the building, how it feels, how it smells. Breathe in the knowing that you are supported upon this earth. Breathe out knowing you are connected to our Mother and all of her beings, to all creation, to all humanity. Let your mind flow back hundreds, thousands of years past and imagine this earth as your ancestors knew it, here in this beautiful place. Imagine the wind, the sun, the rain, how the trees sway, the tides rise and fall. Imagine the joy, the laughter, and the love. Believe that you are supported in this place by the beauty that surrounds you and the spirit of your ancestors. Believe that you are connected to your ancestors connected to each other, connected to the future generations. If you notice your mind wanders too far, simply bring it back to the breath. Breathing in, you are loved. Breathing out, you are happy. Now bring your awareness to your nose and the breath flowing into your nose, into your body, circling around and coming back out through your nose. Taking with it any toxins or tension. Your body is relaxed. You are at peace. You are here now. Breathe and just be. Now become aware once again of your whole body resting comfortably in your chair. Your feet on the floor, the light against your eyelids. Become aware of the space around you, the sounds, the smells, the air on your skin. When you are ready, go ahead and move your body as it prepares to wake up, relaxed and energized. And in your own time, slowly open your eyes and come out of the meditation practice, bringing only good energy with you and holding on to the strength and beauty of connection. I want to credit my colleague Maria Gerard for creating that guided meditation that we use in the circles with the inmates. Molly one?
Qayana, everybody. Thank you so much.
Jigawabam the Gudge. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Tumio.
Thank you. Bye.